All right, let's dive into a figure who really stirred things up in Kenya, Wafula Chebukati. He was head of the IEBC, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. And his time there, let's just say, not exactly a walk in the park.
Not at all. Really at the heart of some of the most controversial elections. The IEBC, they oversee elections in Kenya, and, well, Kenyan elections, they have a bit of a reputation for being intense.
That's putting it mildly. We're talking accusations of fraud, court cases, protests, even violence. And sadly, Chebukati recently passed away. Makes this look back at his life and impact all the more timely. We've got some insights from a KTN News Kenya video, a good summary of his career. Let's start with his background. He was a lawyer, and not just any lawyer.
Yeah, founded his own firm, member of the Law Society of Kenya. So this wasn't some political appointee plucked out of nowhere. Deep understanding of the legal system.
And hold on to your hats for this one. He even ran for office himself back in 2007. So he knew the Kenyan political scene from the inside.
Yeah, and that's got to give you a different perspective, right? Being both a legal expert and a candidate might explain why he, later on at the IEBC, he had such a, well, some might say tenacious way of doing things.
Leads us right to 2017, appointed IEBC chair by then-President Uhuru Kenyatta. And buckle up, because the next 6 years, he oversaw not one, not two, but three presidential elections.
Each one seemingly more controversial than the last. Like in 2017, the Supreme Court annulled the election. Irregularities, they said.
Yeah.
Declared it invalid, basically. Huge deal, set the stage for even more tension down the line.
Then comes 2022, similar story unfolds. Chebukati declares William Ruto the winner, but get this. 4 out of 7 IEBC commissioners dissent, publicly disagree with the results. Imagine the fallout from that.
It was intense, to say the least. Not just legal battles, but public outcry, protests, real worries about the stability of the country.
And Chebukati was right in the thick of it. The video uses some pretty striking language to describe him, calling him a man and a half with piercing eyes. They even compare him to, like, a figure from a mafia movie, the way he carried himself.
Wow, it really paints a picture, doesn't it? It speaks to the intensity of the whole situation. Makes you wonder, though, was this on purpose? Did he cultivate that image to project strength, authority in such a volatile environment?
I mean, think about it. He's leading the organization tasked with fair elections in a country with a history of electoral violence. That's got to be immense pressure. Could that have affected his demeanor, how he presented himself?
It's certainly possible. And this is the guy who becomes the first IEBC chair to serve a full 6-year term. He even got the Elder of the Order of the Golden Heart Award, a huge honor in Kenya. Clearly, he felt he was doing the right thing, even if it rubbed some people the wrong way.
Yeah, the video even quotes him saying, "I have no regrets," standing firm by his choices, even with all the criticism.
But then there's the flip side. His critics, they argued he was too stubborn, unwilling to compromise. They felt his actions, even if technically legal, actually eroded public trust in the whole electoral process.
So we've got this complex picture, a man both praised and vilified for his role in shaping Kenya's democracy.
And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating, isn't it? We're not here to judge, to say he was a saint or a villain. We're digging into the nuances, the challenges he faced, the lasting impact of his choices.
It really makes you think,
Yeah.
Chebukati might be gone, but these issues, they're not going away.
Oh, absolutely. His legacy is going to be debated for a long time in Kenya and beyond, really.
Like, take Kenya's next election in 2027, just a couple years away, and the way the IEBC operates, it's going to be directly shaped by what happened under Chebukati.
Exactly. Will it be smoother, more transparent, or will we see the same controversies, the same tensions flaring up again?
Who knows? But that's not all this deep dive is about, is it? It's not just about predicting the future. It's about understanding where we are now, how we got here. What does Chebukati's story tell us about, I don't know, about democracy itself? About leadership? About how to handle power in such a charged political landscape?
It's all connected, isn't it? And I think one of the things it highlights is just how fragile democracy can be. It needs constant attention, a commitment to the rule of law, and a willingness to talk, really talk, even when you disagree strongly.
You mentioned earlier, Chebukati was the first IEBC chair to serve a full 6-year term. That must have taken some serious, I don't know, resilience or something to withstand that pressure for so long.
Think about it. Kenya's history with electoral violence, every election he oversaw, the stakes were incredibly high. Every decision scrutinized, debated by everyone, the public, the media, political groups. He was under a microscope.
Speaking of scrutiny, I keep thinking about how the video describes him, this imposing figure, a man and a half with those piercing eyes. Was that just, colorful language, or does it tell us something about the kind of leadership that was, I don't know, needed, or at least seen as needed?
It's an interesting question, right? Because the IEBC chair, it's not just some administrative job. It's highly visible, politically charged. You're dealing with powerful people, different factions all vying for power, and the public, they're deeply invested in the outcome. To navigate all that, maybe you need more than just legal knowledge. You need a certain, I don't know, presence, a force of personality to command respect, keep things in check.
Makes you wonder about the balance in any democracy. You need strong leadership, someone who can make decisions, but you also need transparency, accountability, a way to build consensus. It's a tough act.
And how do you keep the public's trust when the stakes are that high and everyone's fighting over the result? Especially with a history like Kenya's. These are questions that go beyond just one country. Democracies all over the world are dealing with this.
That's it, right? The things Chebukati faced, accusations of bias, questions about the elections, the difficulty of keeping everyone happy, it's all happening everywhere.
Exactly. And his story, it reminds us that democracy isn't a spectator sport. It's active, you have to think critically, and be willing to have those difficult conversations.
So as we look at Chebukati's legacy, it's not just about one man or one country. It's a tiny version of the bigger problems facing democracies in the 21st century.
And the story's not over yet. Kenya's next election in 2027, that'll be the test, to see what lessons have been learned from both his successes and his mistakes.
Okay, so keeping all that in mind, let's switch gears a little. What does Chebukati's story mean for people listening, for those trying to understand how democracy works and what their own role in it is? We've really gone in depth on Wafula Chebukati's career, the ups and downs, his impact on Kenya's elections. But what does it all mean for someone tuning in, someone who's not, a political scientist or a Kenya expert? Why should they care about what this one guy did?
You hit the nail on the head. It's why we do these deep dives. Chebukati's story, it might seem like just another news item, something happening far away. But honestly, it touches on things that are true for democracies everywhere, about power, about choices we make as individuals.
So bigger picture stuff.
Yeah, think about the stuff he went through. Accusations of bias, powerful people trying to influence him, that constant struggle to maintain public trust in a system that's, let's face it, messy and complicated. Every democracy deals with this, all over the world.
And it's easy to feel like, what can you do about it? Like, your one little voice doesn't make a difference.
And that's where Chebukati's story is so important, I think. One person, but his choices, his actions, they had a huge impact on a whole country. It's a reminder that we all have a part to play in shaping our democracies, even if it doesn't always feel like it.
So what can we do? How can we actually make a difference?
Well, it starts with being informed, engaged. Don't just take things at face value, the headlines and all that. Dig a little deeper, question what you think, look for different perspectives.
And hold our leaders accountable, demand transparency, call out injustice, even if it seems small.
Yeah, and I think this is key. Talking to people who see things differently than you do, respectfully, of course. Democracy, it thrives on debate, on sharing ideas. When we just stick to our own little bubbles, shut out anyone who disagrees, that's when things break down.
So wrapping up this deep dive into Wafula Chebukati, we want to leave you with this. Democracy isn't a spectator sport. It's something we all participate in, every single one of us.
And the choices we make, big or small, they matter. They shape the future of our communities, our world. Whether it's voting, speaking out, even just having those tough conversations with people who disagree, we all have a role to play in building a more just, equitable world.
Chebukati's story, it's complicated, controversial, but it's a great way to look at these really important issues. We hope this deep dive gave you something to think about, some new insights, maybe even a renewed sense of purpose as we face the challenges and opportunities of being alive today. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on our next deep dive.